Well, lying on his deathbed, the rich, miserly man calls to his long-suffering wife, "I want to take all my money with me," he tells her. "So promise me you'll put it all in the casket." So after the man dies, his widow attends the memorial service with her best friend. And just before the undertaker closes the coffin, she places a small metal box inside. And her friend looks at her in horror. "Surely," she says, "you didn't put the money in there." "I did promise him I would," the widow answers. "So I got it all together, deposited every penny in my account, and wrote him a check. If he can cash it, he can spend it." Jeff, I'm so glad you're here today. All right. Can't take it with you, or maybe you can. So we are in the midst of our prosperity series for September. And so just a quick review from last week, we talked about some prosperity basics, Prosperity 101, and we looked at 3 questions. Did you do your homework is my first question. Okay, it's all right. So 3 questions were that we explored. What is the nature of God? What is the nature of you? And what is the nature of life? Because however way we see that has quite the bearing on how we feel about prosperity. So, if you haven't explored those questions, I invite you to do that for yourself. Remembering that as we see God is how we see us. Our search for God is our search for ourselves, folks. And so, what is your view of God, especially around prosperity? So, my question today is, what is prosperity? What is prosperity to you? And I bet if I asked each one of you what prosperity is to you, that you would each have a different answer. Right. Well, I have an answer. Of course, have a spiritual answer. But I really, truly believe that this is what prosperity is. The consciousness that infinite abundance is everywhere. To me, that is the ultimate prosperity, is having a consciousness where we know and we claim and we allow the infinite abundance that is everywhere. We know that. Well, our co-founder, Charles Fillmore, had some ideas around prosperity. He described prosperity as the idea of divine abundance that is in back of all things. Things come and go, he says, but the divine idea called abundance remains. That is where we should put our faith. So, regardless of what appearances are, infinite abundance is what he's telling us. And he made a distinction between spiritual abundance and material abundance. Spiritual abundance is founded on the understanding that there is an infinite, inexhaustible substance, and we talked about that last week. Substance is the creative energy of the universe. That is our supply. See, that is our supply. That creative, that infinite field of possibility, that infinite field of creative energy, that is our source. Prosperity is our divine birthright. We are meant to live prosperously. And if you remember, Jesus in John 10 said, "I have come that you might live and live abundantly." Not live from scarcity, not live from fear. I have come that you might live. I have come to show you what you are as the Christ, so that you might live a full and prosperous life. It is our birthright. And it's always available to us. And Charles Fillmore taught that giving is what creates prosperity. We must give with the right attitude, in gratitude, and faith versus fear. So, today, one of my favorite topics is giving. We're going to talk about giving today. Yay! And so the reason I'm calling this the big frog, do you like you like my frog? Like my frog? Yeah. The big frog, who here has taken the 4T prosperity class? Okay, all right. So the 4T prosperity class was written by a Unity minister named Stretton Smith many, many years ago. And he was very passionate about tithing your time, talent, and treasure. And he started out, it was a 12-week course, and the very first week of that course, he talked about the big frog. You have to swallow a lot of frogs, or because swallowing a frog as a vegetarian is really appalling to me. But you know the saying: you had to swallow the big frog, or kiss the big toad, or whatever it is. Okay. In other words, this is kind of a biggie for those of us on the prosperity path. And the big frog is called tithing. Tithing. And we're going to talk about that. And so tithing is tithing 10% of all that you receive to the person, place, or institution where you have received spiritual food. 10% of what you bring in. And people go, this is a tricky subject. Oh my gosh, this minister is going to talk about this, and I'm going to sit at the back of the church so I can squeeze out, because one more time a minister's talking about money in church. Well, guess what? I love to talk about money. I do. Because the reality is, folks, we are here on this 4-acre campus. It's so gorgeous, isn't it? And we're in this beautiful space, this beautiful building. And absolutely, we are an autonomous organization. We do not get funds from the mothership, Unity Village, at all. And so I think this is something to really honor and acknowledge each of you as the congregation. Because of you, we are here. Because of you, we have this 4-acre campus, we have this beautiful space, you have staff, a minister, you have everything that you see here is all because of you. And thank you so much. And what really keeps a church going, or keeps a life flowing, is prosperity consciousness. Yes, money is a great thing. And wow, we tend to get really hung up on money, and we tend to hold on to it because we go, well, what can we do without it in our culture? And the opportunity that we have is to create a healed relationship with money. Because many of us grew up in a household where we learned there really wasn't enough, right? We learned and we hold on to that. But the beautiful thing about money is energy, just like everything else. Money is energy. Money is part of that, an expression of that infinite field of possibility that Charles Fillmore calls substance. It's all part of the flow. And so as we give, and what Charles Fillmore is teaching, and what I've learned, is that as we give, we deepen our ability to have faith in the infinite abundance that is. And it transforms our lives. And so a spiritual teaching is tithing. And where does that come from? Where does 10% come from? Well, in Genesis 14, Abraham brought a tithe to his teacher, Melchizedek, that was 10%. So it's grounded, it's a biblical teaching. And I think it's 10% because it's that perfect amount that has us go, ow. 10%? And people go, well, is it on the gross or is it on the net? Let's get clear here. Let's get some specific. Well, I'm going to say I've always tithed on the gross. And it's okay. Some people take out their expenses first and then they tithe. And so we can get into the more specifics about that, but I really want to share my journey of tithing with you, my story. In 1998, I was pretty new in Unity. And I was working at a job that I loved, and we had a corporate takeover, and I was the very first layoff. And so I went on unemployment as I was looking for another job. And it just so happened that the spiritual community that I was a part of, New World Unity down in Springfield, was doing a series on tithing and prosperity. And I got to tell you, it was, and I, you know that knowing that you have when you know it's yours to do, but it's like, that friction of, I know this is what I want to do. I know I want to step and be all I can be. I really want to step out in faith, but it was like, my voice was going, are you crazy? You're on unemployment right now. Your rent is this. Your expenses are this. It went. But I decided to swallow or kiss the toad, and the big frog. I decided to just love up that big frog, and I stepped into tithing. And there was a moment where, you remember Susie Orman? Okay, she was on Oprah a lot. And so I decided, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to work in a program, a program to, enhance my financial wisdom and learn just more about the whole being financially mature and that kind of thing. And she had this program. So I bought her book, and I was doing this first exercise, and she said, write down all your assets, and then from that, we're going to work for the rest of the book. When I wrote down my assets, it was like, I don't have anywhere to go with this. And so the interesting thing is, what was on paper was not what I was experiencing. And folks, I'm not talking about magic. Please don't, this is not magic. Okay? What I got was that what was looking at paper here and what my experience was here, I was so abundant in my life. All my bills were paid. I was eating just fine. My life was prosperous, but it wasn't showing up on paper. And what I get is that from that, it's called living from faith. Living out of my comfort zone, and I just said yes to trusting. I said yes, and the yes kept finding me. Do you see? Am I making sense? There is something about when we are on the spiritual journey, folks, and we step out in faith, in spite of appearances, and we say yes. It is amazing how we are supported. And there is something so beautiful about giving from our heart. There's something, bless you, something so powerful about giving from faith. It's like it just creates this, wow, this strength and this knowing. And I've never turned back from it, folks. And I am telling you, tithing changes your life. It transformed my life. It does. Because it's edgy. And it took me completely out of my comfort zone. So I got to step out, like Harrison Ford did, when the bridge appeared. I got to step out and just know that I would be supported. And I was. And I have been ever since. And it just keeps getting more and more and more prosperous. And there's something, again, about giving, from that space of gratitude. I love that story about Jesus with the 5,000, because in the biblical story, what it said, he got the loaves and the fishes, and he looked up. What that means is, metaphysically, is he raised his consciousness. And I don't know how those loaves and fishes, I don't know if the trucks came, the little, the food trucks came or whatever, whatever. Because it wasn't like Jesus all of a sudden snapped his fingers and there were the loaves and fishes. That's not how it works. It's not magical thinking. What happened was probably he held knowing in spite of the appearance of lack, and people showed up bringing food, and everyone ate, and everyone left full. Folks, that's just how it works. And so I love the practice of tithing because, again, it gets us out of our comfort zone. And giving, and there's something about giving, and I want to share with you, and I have a little catch in my throat because it just meant so much to me. There's something about giving. But so this weekend, where I wasn't here on Friday, and I was lifting Singing Unity because I knew you guys were raising the house. And what I was called to do was I was invited by Unity of Fairfax to go co-facilitate their retreat they were having at Cape on Springs. They invited me a couple of times, and I just felt like it was mine to do to say yes. And so I was making my way up to Cape on Springs, and I was going down 66, and I took my little handy exit where I know there's a Starbucks. I needed a little Starbucks fix on my way. And so I pulled off, and I went into the Starbucks. And there was a woman in front of me, and her order came to $11.04. And forgive me, I can't do a good New York accent, but she's like, "Honey, do you have 4 cents?" And he's like, no, I don't have 4 cents. She goes, I don't have 4 cents. And I just said, well, I've got 4 cents. And she looked at me like, are you crazy? I said, no, really. I said, I would love to get rid of my pennies. I have 4 cents right here, and I'm happy to give it to you. She goes, oh, no, really. No, you don't have to do that. I said, would you let me give you 4 cents? And so she's like, oh. And so I opened up my change purse, and I only had 3 cents. 3 pennies. I had more change than that, but I just had 3 pennies. And so the woman, the barista said, oh, I have a penny here in the little, change box. And so this woman was just beside herself. She said, I just can't believe you offered that to me. She goes, I can't believe it. She goes, I'm from Long Island. And she said, in Long Island, we just do this. Here's my money. And she said, she goes, we're on our way to Nashville, and we're all excited about, being in this. She goes, I want to move here. She said, I want to move here. I want to move where people connect. And, so it touched her, but I got to tell you, I was like, that was the best. And so I got my coffee, and continued to talk with her a little bit, and they went on their way. And as I was leaving, I stopped to get some gas, and waiting for the light to turn, there was an elderly gentleman that had a sign that said, I need help with my meds. Your money, I need help. And so I'm like, dadgummit, I need to bring more cash. But I had my change purse, and I just emptied out my change purse, and I rolled down the window, and he kind of, it was hard for him to get up out of his chair. It really touched my heart. And he comes over, and I said, I'm so sorry I don't have cash, but I want to give you this. And he took my hand, and he said, ma'am, anything you give me is such a blessing. And we like stayed there for a few seconds, And I just went, I don't know, there's nothing more beautiful than giving. So I am not telling you to go give all your money away and you can't live, or I'm not telling you to do that. Please don't hear that. But I am inviting you to consider, if you've never considered tithing and you want to transform your life, it will transform your life. If you give it from gratitude instead of fear. Because if you give it from fear, you're still in that worry, and it can be okay if you feel a little uncomfortable. It's okay. And you need to give it a little bit of time, for it to work its out picturing its transformation in your life. It took a few months for me to really feel the magnitude of the expansion from tithing. But I promise you, if you take it on, it will transform your life. And if you have a heightened awareness about giving, this week, I just invite you to just stay alert to how you can give. And there's something about money, because we tend to hold on to money. Again, we have some energy around money. And when we can release it, it's such a blessing. Just to remember, it's just energy. It's congealed energy, just waiting to be shared, waiting to be flowed out. And I invite you to not give to receive. Give for the sake of giving, and you will receive. Because I tell you, that man and that woman still live in my heart. You can tell. It's just alive in me. It touched me for that whole experience at Cape Pond Springs. I was more awake and I was more present because of giving. The simple act of giving transforms our life. Okay, I'm not going to preach anymore. I could talk about this forever. But I thank you for listening, and I thank you for being willing. And if tithing is something that is on your heart that you would like to take on and you are afraid, come talk to me. Really, where are you spiritually fed? And to tithe where you are spiritually fed. All right, let's affirm together. As I give in trust and gratitude, I know and experience more fully my true nature. Yes, and so it is.